I'm Adriana Zaluka with Alex, my partner in crime with Photech Hub, and we'd like to welcome everyone to today's Technology program, which is part of the Larry Krauss Family Office Technology Institute, founded by our collaborator Phil Strasser, with us today here as well. This initiative has been bringing cutting-edge solutions for family offices in discussions, in conversations like these with founders and senior leaders. Just a quick note from us that this is the last episode before the break that Phil normally has for the tax season in March and April. And then we're going to be back in early May with another technology episode. We'll confirm the timing and participants soon. And on the 22nd of May, we're doing something new, which is a technology demo day. And that's a different format to today, in that will be an event with a series of quick demos to show where the different systems that have been on the series, where they are in terms of their innovation and what they're building, or updating with their systems. So that's it, I think, from me. Alex, anything to add?
No, that's it. I'm just reading here what I wrote.
One thing is for the interview, if you want to put questions in the chat, you can do that, and then Paul will pick it up. So with that, we'll hand over to Phil to introduce our participants today. And thank you all for joining.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining.
I look forward to it.
Well, so I'm really excited about this program. Both of the panelists are really outstanding and really cutting edge technologies. And I've had a chance to talk to them, and they're just fantastic. And it gave me an opportunity to reconnect with Paul Freeland. And many years ago, I spent a lot of time with Paul figuring out how to move into SCI Archway when he was there. And I was pleasantly surprised when he popped up at PwC. And to reconnect and have him be the moderator is a thrill for me, because he is really one of the more talented people in the industry. He's now a partner in the family enterprise section of PwC. He's over 25 years of experience in the fintech industry. He leads PwC's Wealth Compass Managed Service, focused on the technology and reporting needs of family offices and ultra-high net worth individuals. He specializes in long-term planning, asset aggregation, partnership administration for family investment tools. And when I have a question on any of those areas, he's the first person I call. So, Paul, I'm going to turn it over to you, introduce our panelists, and take it away.
Thanks, Phil. I too love the network in this family office space, and it's been nice to reconnect. As Phil mentioned, I've been in the industry a long time. Actually started back at Arthur Andersen, but I was one of the founding partners of Archway Technology, which at the time, felt like, cutting edge, innovative, in the fintech industry, which makes, being able to interview two innovative tech leaders for this event a lot of fun for me. And so today, I'm going to interview the CEO of LemonEdge, Gareth Hewitt, and the CEO of Truewind, Alex Lee. And what we thought about this panel was to start asking questions that we would all normally ask new entrants as we diligence new technology vendors. So for the panel, I'm going to start out by asking who they are, what's their origin story of their company, and what pain points they're solving for clients. Then we'll go into questions about how they handle implementations, data security, and their overall commitment to the family office space and innovation in general. So with that, I'll let Gareth and Alex introduce themselves. They're both solving very different problems in the back office accounting industry, but they're both gathering quick penetration in their respective markets. And so I'll give them both a chance to introduce themselves and their organizations. and maybe even a little bit about their company's mission and visions and core values. And so with that, I'll start with Alex at Truewind. Alex, if you want to introduce yourself and your company, that'd be a great place to start.
Thanks, Paul. It's great to be here, everyone. Thanks for the invite. My name is Alex. I'm the co-founder CEO at Truewind. Paul, before we started the session, I think you mentioned you're into airplanes. We could have a whole conversation on that because I used to be an aerospace engineer at Boeing. In fact, that's where I started my career, spent 5 years there. And so, bit of an interesting twist of fate how I ended up building accounting software. But my way there was I spent several years as a venture capital investor, investing at an institutional seed fund as well as a corporate fund. But my time was split, mostly in investing, but partially with portfolio support. And by portfolio support, I would literally parachute into the portfolio companies and help out with the finance, do the AP, the AR, the bookkeeping, the reporting, the forecasting. And it was in that experience where I wasn't a CPA, but I did a lot of accounting work, and I just saw how antiquated the systems were, how disparate the data sets were, how nothing tied together, and how all of that was done manually. Whereas I look at the engineering tools, everything was real time, everything was in sync. You had real-time dashboards that would let you know exactly how your engineering systems are doing. But with finance, you'd be lucky to get your reports 2 to 3 weeks after the end of the month in an Excel spreadsheet, and that was the best that we got. And so from that experience, I started Truewind. Truewind was founded in November of 2022. That was the official incorporation date. What else happened in November 2022? ChatGPT launched. And I remember exactly where I was when that technology came out. So we were founded on the heels of ChatGPT, building an AI-powered digital staff accountant. In the past 2 years, we've raised $17 million in venture funding, a seed round, and a Series A round. The Series A round happened in Q4 last year for some of the best in AI and accounting, including Thomson Reuters Ventures, Row Capital. I'm based in San Francisco, but my whole board is based in New York, so I make it there a lot. We're working with over 100 customers, including top 100 accounting firms like EisnerAmper and Frank Rimerman. And the focus is around how do we build an AI-powered digital staff accountant, really for the goal of up-leveling and giving leverage to human accountants. We don't believe this technology is going to automate everything end-to-end, nor do we think it should. But we believe in empowering people to want to use this. And how do we up-level accountants? And given the industry trends of just not enough accountants to do the work, I think accountants are very important for building trust and for applying value to businesses and our end clients. And so that's why I've dedicated my life to building this technology.
Thanks, Alex. It's funny, some of the best accountants I've had and worked with in my career also were not, CPAs by nature, just great problem solvers. So that's interesting how you got into the space.
Love it.
Gareth, how about you? What's LemonEdge and how'd you guys get started?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Gareth. I'm the CEO of LemonEdge. Likewise, not a chartered accountant, but spent enough time in the space. I've spent the last 20 years building partnership accounting systems. Really, I started out at a small company called Frameworks. We grew that to about 45 people. In 2008, I left and headed up product and pre-sales at eFront for 2.5 years as it was growing kind of globally. Then I left to start my own company that sold back into real estate, fund admin, VCs, etc. And then probably around 2014, we created a joint venture with Centerbridge Partners based out in New York to build a new partnership accounting system from the ground up. Really, because they were at the forefront of a lot of kind of complex problems and nothing out there in the market was working for them. I moved to New York I was and I am currently based out of London, but I moved to New York to work with them to build that out. It transformed their operations. It arguably worked too well because they bought us out. But I stayed on for a year before starting this company. And really what we had then is the luxury of 20 years of hindsight of how to do this properly. We knew what everyone in the market had done, what they'd done wrong, what they'd done right, how to do it better, same with ourselves. And the luxury of being able to start from scratch. and not have any of the legacy kind of debt issues in terms of building out the wrong thing incrementally. So we started by building a platform, a cloud-based platform. It's highly configurable. We'll probably touch on that a bit later in terms of you don't need any expertise, no more than like Excel skills, but you can certainly build out your processes. And we also made it fully understand fund structures. So it understands, like, you can book some transaction at the bottom of the structure and it knows how to allocate that automatically through your structure. It deals with open-ended, closed-ended, side pockets. It deals with all the different kind of allocation methodologies so that you only have to do something once and it knows how to account for that, report on it, look through, etc. And lastly, it's really built for scale. So, we can deal with anything from hands full of clients all the way up to, thousands, tens of thousands and more in terms of retail investors and all the rest. So it really deals with the volume of data. And we really kind of brought that to market in 2022. So likewise, we've been going for about 3 years. We have clients in the sub 1 billion range, in the 1 to 20 range, 20 to 50, 50 to 100, and 100 billion plus. Blackstone is an investor. They're also a client. And so, we deal with the closed-ended, but we also deal with like their flagship BXP open-ended funds. We automate striking and NAV. We deal with credit. We deal with hybrid. We deal with retail investors. And recently, in the last year or so, we started dealing a lot within the family office space. So it's really bringing all of that together under one platform and being able to automate a lot of those things for you.
Thanks, Gareth. I may ask you to expand on some of that product functionality with my next round of questions, but you both sort of voiced over some of the typical family office pain points, and having been in the industry a long time, they haven't changed a lot. And with the advent of AI and how quickly things seem to be progressing, I thought I'd voice over those pain points and maybe get your perspective on, how they might apply, how your tools might apply to the family office accounting market and the pain points that you're solving. So, when I look at family offices and the complexity around their legal structures, creates complexity around their data processing and their data strategy, making reporting to the chief investment officers, the chief financial officers, the tax advisors, and the family members all a constant battle because there's disparate systems. There is no data strategy. There's a lack of data integration. So when you're thinking about your product on top of that messy, complex industry in a niche market like family office or private wealth, how do you see the current state, and specifically, how are your products, which of those pain points are they alleviating or solutions for? And to keep with the original order, why don't we start with you, Alex, at Truewind?
Sure thing, Paul. The key takeaway I want to share here with our guests is not all integrations are made equal. And I will get into what I mean by all that. So I resonate with everything that you described there, Paul. In fact, everyone here at Truewind does, and I won't restate them, so I'll try to be specific. Getting timely financials is really important. So our goal is to accelerate the month-end close. And one area that we see accountants that serve family offices spend a lot of time on is bank and credit card transactions. There's just a lot of transactions, a lot of different credit cards. Something that would normally take many days, using AI, we aim to drive it down to minutes. And that kind of makes sense, right? Like if you see thousands of transactions, a human would need to manually go through each one by one. Maybe they bulk it, maybe they skim through it a little bit, but AI would be able to look at thousands and do it all at once. So that makes sense. However, when it comes to integrations, that becomes a little bit trickier because we think, okay, if I use ABC tools, great. I just, you would tell the vendor, I need you to integrate with these 3 tools. The first problem is there's not call it like a broad-based standard where everyone is on the same set of tools. There's a very long tail of tools. Okay, so if that's a problem, then we think, well, how do we build integrations into all of them. But what we've learned in building software for several years is you can integrate with something, but in a poor way. Maybe I can integrate with it, but I only read 2 or 3 columns of data versus I read all the data sets. And the level of effort that it takes to get to reading all the data is exponentially larger. That's only reading data. What about writing data? Just because I can read from your integration doesn't mean I can write back to your integration. So maybe one point of advice to the audience when a vendor says they do integrate with something, it's worth asking how well do you integrate with it? Can you actually, just because you integrate doesn't mean they can solve the workflow that you're looking for. So that's the next level question that I would always advise people to ask. One thing that is exciting in the current day of AI and LLMs is maybe you don't need to integrate with it. Because the integration, the limiting part is like we're forced to fit the data model as it is. Whatever system you're going to integrate with, we're forced to fit the data model that they give us. With AI, now we can take the data model, restructure it into something that fits what we have built. For example, on the Truewind side. I hope that wasn't too technical, and at the risk of boring people, I'll pause there. If you want me to dig in more, Paul, I'll let you ask a follow-up.
No, I'll ask a quick follow-up because you're exactly right. And one of the things that I remember most from seeing your product is the confidence rating on the integration and the categorization. Can you talk about that at all with what you're doing with how good was this integration and the work that the AI did?
Yes, love to. Thanks for giving me all the juicy ones. Sorry, Gareth, for taking these ones. So we, with every action that the AI takes on our system, there is a confidence score to describe how confident it is. And so as a user, you're able to open this up. Imagine you have the description of the bank transaction, the dollar amount, the date, and then a confidence score of its classification. So you're able to sort by the confidence score and be like, okay, everything above 95%, I'm just going to ignore. And everything below, let's say 80%, I want to flag and I want to review these transactions. And imagine if you're managing a junior staff accountant and they present you their work. It would suck to have to go through every single one of these transactions. It would be great if they could say, I'm sure about these ones. I'm not sure about these ones. Could you help me review them? From a technology standpoint, asking your AI to review its own work is like asking a drunk person, are you drunk? That it doesn't bode well. And so this is where agentic AI comes into play, and we separate the two. That's how we think about building software. We have an AI agent that actually does the classification, who's trained on executing this very specific task, and then a separate agent who's trained on reviewing the task, who's trained to be skeptical, who's trained to be not just be the optimistic, confident person like in ChatGPT giving you the answer, but to be a bit more skeptical, review the work. And beyond the number, the confidence score, we also have an explanation, a written explanation of why we classified it as such, and if you're unsure, why you are unsure. Thanks for that one, Paul.
No, that's wonderful. One more for you, Alex, and then we'll get over to Gareth. When you are looking at your market and your competition, do you have any? Who do you see as competition? I always looked at Excel in this industry as the biggest competitor to new entrants of technology. How do you look at it?
I do too. So in our world, we think of there's the general ledger on one side, and we're not building a new GL. We think this is it's its own beast, and we leave the smart folks like Gareth to go tackle this problem. On top of the general ledger, human bookkeepers have to do a large body of work. This is where we come in. And so the first tool that we do see as our main competitor is Excel. But that's not to say there aren't new entrants in this market. There are several. Numeric is a new month-end close solution. Basis is another AI agent solution. And there's several others. But I do think there's something about building for family offices and accountants that work with family offices. And so we were lucky to have worked with certain firms early on to make sure we deeply understand the pain point of family office.
Perfect. All right, on to LemonEdge. Gareth, in family office, it's partnership accounting, fund accounting, partnership accounting in complex layered estate structures. Give us an overview of how your product, helps solve for, that reality in the family office market, and what kind of traction you're getting and with your clients.
Yeah, no, thank you. There's two kind of key things that we have in our platform, and we call it a platform, that really differentiates us. And one of them is that it is a platform. So when we talk about data, when we talk about disparate systems, when we talk about all those different integrations, we're a modern platform with an API based entirely throughout it that you can configure. And again, we can go into the detail there, but you don't need to be a developer to do it. You just need to be someone who can use Excel type of configuration. And if you look at the current state, a lot of integrations are based on 10, 15, 20-year-old tech that is basically passing CSV files back and forth. And so we still can do that, because sometimes that's the only way you can integrate with a legacy piece of tech. We're way more API based. We're way more automation based. So you can set up those connections to a third-party tool and pull that data in or push it out without, having to depend on us or developers or anyone technical in order to achieve it. And I think the second thing, and we can go into that in a lot more detail around data and other types of products. But the second thing is that we've got an engine that understands how to allocate transactions through a structure. The big difference with a lot of the legacy tech is it looks at everything as an individual legal vehicle. And to your point, when you have a lot of those, you end up with these processes where you say, well, I'll take what's here and kind of copy it over here and transform it a bit, and as I try and move it up the structure. And instead, you don't have to do that with our system. It's very much based around the idea that it knows how to allocate any given transaction through the structure. It knows the relationships. It knows the calculations to do that, so that you can book something once, and it'll automate allocating that all the way through the structure. You can do look-through reporting, so you can look at the very top and get to the underlying assets and ownerships, no matter how disparate that relationship might be. And so it's all about, again, probably to a similar point of Alex is saying, when you get to your month end, your quarter end, you can get those reports as quickly as possible, because we're automating a lot of the processes that sit around it. And I think, to reiterate some of the previous points as well, what we see everywhere is people using Excel, to the extent that the systems they have for their back office accounting is really a record keeping system, and they're doing all their work offline. They're doing all their work in Excel or some other proprietary system. And once they finally have these calculations, these allocations, and all the rest, they bulk upload it. And so you can kind of use anything almost for the accounting system, because it's not really providing you any value. You're doing the work elsewhere. And so it's all about saying, we can take those processes, we can take those algorithms, we can put them on the system and have something that automates a lot of that work. So the accounting system is providing the value.
That's great. I'm going to ask you a follow-up. Phil was kind enough to introduce PwC's managed service, and we're a tech agnostic, sort of best of breed approach to solving these back office problems in family office and private wealth. And throughout my career, as profits interests have grown in popularity, I've been of the mindset that you always need to build a work paper. You got to prove the waterfall calculation to the stakeholders, be it the CFO, be it the auditors, be it the tax provider, the estate planner. You have to prove it all out. And so when you guys are addressing something like a complex waterfall, what's different about your tool versus legacy systems?
Yeah, thank you for that. And it's a great point, because when you look at why do people use Excel, there's a number of reasons, but one that isn't so obvious, but I think is arguably the most important, is what you literally just said right there. It's about, I need to be able to prove it. And if I've got a system that automatically spits out a number for my carry calculation, profits, interest, whatever my calculations are, they're black boxes. So while it's nice that I have it, I still have to do the work offline. I still have to calculate in Excel. I still have to write it all out. to make sure that that number is correct and be able to prove it. And worse, if I actually have to troubleshoot it because the number's wrong, it's really hard to do so because the whole thing's a black box. So, Excel is used for a number of reasons, but one big reason within the accounting space is being able to prove it out. And so we've kind of taken that approach, and we created what we called algorithms in the system, which essentially is you can feed it a bunch of queries, which you can easily write in our system. And then you've essentially got almost Excel embedded into the system where you do the calculation. And then you take the results and it can automatically book those carry transactions or those profits, interests, and use our allocation system and all the rest to automate it. And we did that for a number of reasons. One of them, to the point, is it means I don't have 20 different Excel files floating around for the same thing that people are changing and no one really knows why. And you can lock it down and all those kind of things so that I can click one button and it just runs and it works. And while all that's true, and there is a huge amount of benefit behind all of that, the real reason people use it in our system is because of the auditability. It's because of the fact of saying, when I look at that transaction in the system and I see, $50,000 for a carry transaction or a profits interest, and I don't think that's right, I can literally click on it and it'll take me right back to the algorithm, which is essentially Excel, where I can see the proof. And it's all the formulas are there. I can see and I can understand how that came to be. I can reproduce it. I can just click a button and have an Excel file, which I can give to an auditor. And my proof's automatically there. So it completely removes the need of saying, I have to calculate it offline in Excel anyway, because the calc is a black box. What we're saying is that everything you do in our system is transparent. There is no black box calculation. The proof is there, and you can always see it. You can always troubleshoot it. You can always step through it, and that's a big difference, but one that's often overlooked as to why people use Excel to begin with.
That's helpful. The other thing that came to mind when you were giving that explanation of the algorithm is flexibility. Families aren't quite like funds in that they can sometimes be infinitely flexible, which means exceptions to how they want the waterfall to work this year versus last year. How do you approach that, or how can users deal with that on their own in LemonEdge?
So it's a great point, because no matter what you can automate, at the end of the day, there's always some exception. And so within our system, you always have the ability to just post adjustments, override things, et cetera. And really what you've got to do, and we have a lot of best practice on it, is when you have created an algorithm, when you have created like a profits interest calculation in our area, just like Excel, you've got to say, well, is it worth, do I just make those adjustments because they're one-off entries and I can easily do that? Or do I want to add a new field to the system, flow that into the algorithm, and update my calc to reflect that? And to your point, the great thing about our system is, again, they don't have to come back to us. They don't have to go to developers. They can add a field. All they're doing is changing Excel. So it's something they already know how to do. And so they can update the algorithm. So if the exception justifies updating the model, then they should do that. And then, that becomes an exception that they can automate going forward just by selecting some value in a new field. Or if it is just truly a one-off exception, it's often better just to post the adjustments and not have to worry about it. But the platform gives the capabilities to the clients. The big thing one of the things that we're trying to address, which I think is a problem in the industry for a long time, is being way too reliant on vendors. Is every time there's an issue, I have to go to the vendor in order to get something done, which is another reason everyone got driven into Excel, because it's like, well, I don't want to do that. That's too costly. It's too time consuming. I can just do the calc in Excel myself. And this is about bringing it back to saying, you can do all those things. You don't need us. And you've got a platform that automates it.
Perfect. Well, I think you just gave us your competitive advantage, so I won't ask you about your competition. So the next section I was thinking about was to talk about, ROI and onboarding. And I'll probably break it into two different kind of questions. But, when we do software selections, for example, you always have sort of functional requirements that you're measuring against. But then when you're thinking about a new entrant, families can also be slow to adopt. There's a saying if you think about the legacy systems, that have been in the market a long time, a controller might be thinking, well, I won't get fired if I buy X because so many people use X. And you think about how quickly the wealth tech stack market is evolving right now. It can feel real daunting from a risk and reward standpoint to say, let's go with a new provider. So the question is, and Alex, we'll start with you, just follow the format. How do you position your value prop and overcome that risk concern of trying something new? What is at risk if they try Truewind?
I think there's two things we lead with two things. One is value prop, but also two, we do spend a lot of time talking about data security. We spend a lot of time talking about our methodology, how we go above and beyond just the basic requirements of being SOC 2 certified. And then part of that would be just the process that we take our firms through. So I'll start with the value prop. Finances are very important to families and family offices, and that's why you hire the best accountants to come work for you, whether it's bringing them in-house, working with a firm like yours, Paul. And that really goes to show how much they emphasize the value on getting your finances right. Getting them very delayed, and even when it's delayed, it's humans. We can't fault human. We're all human. We all make mistakes. When you're dealing with thousands of transactions, naturally, little errors may occur. But it's not just classifying one transaction. You also need to get the location right, which means you might need to go find the receipt. But then that purchase was a month ago, so the receipt is nowhere to be found. There's all these intricate layers of complexity to getting it right. And so we do lead with first the value prop and making sure you get your financials timely and accurate. That's what you're getting by adopting this new technology. First, by working with the firm, you are getting closer to that. But again, us being human, let's find ways to alleviate our crutches of being human and let technology do the things that it's good at. And so by adopting a human plus AI combination, then you're really getting the most accurate data in the most timely fashion. And by working with a firm like yours, world-class service, world-class support through and through. And I think that's what families are really looking for. That's on the first part of value prop. The second part on implementation, well, we make sure, I guess, figure speech, we kind of roll out the red carpet, so to speak. We're not going to tell you this is going to turn on in one day. I think that's probably not a good thing because we've actually tried doing an implementation in 1 week, and while we succeeded, it was very, very mentally taxing. It was very high pressure. But instead, AI should be rolled out in tiers, bit by bit. Let's roll out a little bit, get you using it, get you familiar with it, and then we'll roll out the next piece as well. And so rather than trying to take the step function from nothing to all of AI, let's make it a little bit more gradual. And the tactical and specific things of what we do is during onboarding, we have 4 mandatory training calls where we set up, configure your accounts, we train the AI model to make sure that everything is working as it should be. And we're going to show you, you'll be able to click through it, you'll be able to see the AI in action and start getting comfortable with it. Once we're done with this portion, then the team is off and ready to run and use AI. Then we'll say we have unlimited support of material. We have office hours pre-scheduled already. Feel free to drop in anytime and hear what other firms are doing with our technology. And then if you need more training and support from us, schedule a meeting. We're always there to help guide you through that process. So we think like that part, the operational part, is just as important, if not more important, than just the value prop. As a value prop, there's a lot of tools that can do it. But in the same way that families want to work with you, Paul, and the service that you provide, it's the same idea with us, that we should provide that level of service during the configuration of the account. And then the last thing I'll mention here is the data security is a core tenet of this onboarding process, going through, this is how we think about data security. This is how we go above and beyond what's required. So here's a very simple example I like to share. Yes, we use a large language models like OpenAI, like Anthropic. We have not raised billions of dollars. It's wise, I think, to rely on the technology that they built. But one thing that we preemptively do is we redact all client names from any data we send over. Let's say we send over a set of bank transactions, we redact the client name. So if anything were to happen on the other side, nothing has, but we want to protect for downside, your client's name would not be associated with those transactions. So like those are little things that we can do ahead of time. It takes effort on our side, but it's worth it for the security to make sure that your client's data and anonymity is preserved.
That's great, Alex. We actually have a question that I'm going to ask a follow-up with to help bring it to life. So, and I'll use PwC's Wealth Compass service as an example. In our bookkeeping, we use QuickBooks Online. We use Sage Intacct. If we were interested in Truewind, is Truewind competitive to them, or does it work with them?
Truewind works with them. That was intentionally designed from the get-go. QuickBooks, Sage Intacct, those are our top two integrations. So I said earlier, when you hear integrations, ask how deep it is. We have 100% coverage on QuickBooks and then 95% coverage on Sage Intacct. So those are our two strongest integrations.
Okay.
We believe that the general ledger layer stays the same. This is not the place that we're playing in. But on top of the GL, where your accountants are doing a lot of manual work in spreadsheets, this is what we come in to fill. And we will write all the journal entries back into your GL. So your general ledger, whether it's QuickBooks Online or Sage Intacct, continues to be your source of truth. We're not looking to shake that up. We play the layer above it.
Perfect. And that question came from Jonathan Coburn. Thanks for that question, Jonathan. I hope that helped a little bit. On to you, Gareth. And in the interest of time, why don't you just talk about a little bit about your implementation approach from a resource and time perspective, when you sign a new client and what that looks like.
Yeah, I think to reiterate some of Alex's points, the value prop is there, and you're right about the never getting fired for buying from IBM thing. It's not good enough to be an incremental benefit, right? You've got to be 10x. And we do a lot of that in terms of our platform, the functionality we offer, the automations, to say that this is something that future-proofs you for the next 20 years. But we do the accounting differently. As I mentioned earlier, if I book something in some underlying entity, it knows how to allocate all that through the structure, but it doesn't actually have to record that allocation in the way that legacy systems do. They essentially see them all as individual legal vehicles and have those books and records for them. And that's one of the things that enables us to perform complex operations at scale that legacy systems can't. It speeds up our reporting, all these other benefits kind of flow from that. But what it means is when it comes to implementation, we kind of have a choice of you can try and do it the smart way, or our approach, which is generally with all implementations, is to say, we can just take your data from the GL as is. It's all going to be booked the old way with all these transactions throughout your entire structure, allocated out to whoever. And we can just essentially copy them across. There's some standing data around the investments, the securities, and all the rest of it. But ultimately, we can just copy all of that data across. And going forward, you can use our allocation technology and all the things that make things faster and better. And that makes the initial process of reconciling that, like quarter by quarter and all the rest, a lot easier, because all we're really doing is we're saying, have we moved all that data across exactly? We can run a quick number of reports to prove that. And then you kind of have your system already running in ours, and you can start build the rest of the project. To Alex's point, is normally phased, but it's about what part of things do you want to automate? What do you need to do first, etc. But it makes that initial data migration phase, which is arguably the dreaded part of any of these new projects, it makes that a lot easier to approach, and it requires a lot less time on the client side, because they don't have to go through and start digging into things. Often, to Alex's point, if you say, well, I'm going to take the data quarter by quarter across into our system in the new way of doing it, things won't wreck because transactions were booked incorrectly 4 years ago, and the person who did it isn't around anymore, and all the rest of it. And it's great to uncover those problems, but it's time consuming versus saying, we'll just take everything as is across and build on top.
Perfect. And to kind of ask the same question from Jonathan Cobrin to you, let's say a family is got a general ledger in place, call it NetSuite or Sage, and they're not changing it, right? This is their system, but they love what you do on the allocation side. From that algorithm perspective that you mentioned, what would your answer be to them keeping, their current GL, knowing that you have some of that functionality?
So, we are a GL, and we are built with the idea that we can completely replace all of that. But at the same time, we can work. So that, there's examples of like corporate accounting. We tend not to do that too much. Sage and all the rest, it's very easy. You don't need to buy our system for it. We do some things in corporate accounting, which is, I got an invoice and I want to split it across funds and all the rest of it. But ultimately, we can integrate with the other systems from the corporate accounting side. And so for us, it's very much like we need the data to do the calculations. So we can take all of that data into our system. We can do all the calcs, and we have no problem pushing it back into the other system in terms of the transactions we generate. There becomes a point where people then start questioning why they're doing that, because everything's in our system anyway. But
Right.
You can do
that makes great sense. So the last piece of the question, again, thinking about making software selections, are you partnering with someone committed to the industry, especially innovating and solving problems in the family office industry? That's one piece. I think both of you have sort of addressed the data security, but thinking about the scalability of your solution for families, and if someone just getting someone comfortable that you're here to stay in the family office industry. What is your commitment? What does your roadmap look like? What are you working on? Alex, we'll start with you.
Sorry, Paul, I got cut off just a little bit at the end. Could you repeat the last 2 sentences?
Yeah. So the premise here is that choosing a new tech vendor is not just about what you currently have. It's about what you're creating and your commitment to the industry. And so this is an opportunity to talk about what's on your product roadmap, what you're working on, even maybe some exciting AI use cases that you see maturing in the near future. It's sort of a diligence question to build confidence in where you're headed in the future.
Got it. Thanks, Paul. So just to kind of reset the baseline, we're building an AI-powered digital staff accountant. And so Truewind helps increase the leverage of accountants to be able to do their best work, to be able to up-level themselves. So staff accountants can become seniors to junior controllers, up and up and up. What we're excited about for our next phase is, well, with this digital staff accountant, we see all the financial transactions. We're able to build out your subledger, all the debits and credits. Now we can surface that information on a real-time basis, not just to the accountants, but also to the family offices, to the clients. So really bringing you that desired real-time financial dashboard that you're looking for. Be able to then forecast beyond that, how should I expect my money to trend up or down in the coming months? Maybe you have a big ticket expense item that's coming up. Well, we saw that for the past 2 years happens in March 10th of every year. You pay for this annual subscriptions. We're able to forecast cash balances more accurately now. And the last thing I'll mention is an AI assistant that you're able to interact with that is intelligent to your data. So I'm sure most people on this call has played with ChatGPT. It's a real-time AI agent that you can chat with. You ask it a prompt and it's able to feed information back to you. But wouldn't you like your AI accountant to be able to communicate to you on a more real-time basis, who is able to preempt something before you have to ask them for it? Now, we are building for accountants first and foremost. So Paul, what I would say is, like, for your accountants, we're going to tell them, hey, this family should expect this type of charge coming up in the next month. Maybe you want to inform them ahead of time. This is brain capacity that's very hard for human accountants to manage. Like we're always caught up with the mission critical things that are happening today. It's hard to think about the very nice things that's happening a month or two from now. But an AI can do that. The AI has the digital mental bandwidth to think about those things. So we're designing our AI assistant to inform the accountants, hey, this client's going to have something coming up in the next month or two. Do you want to inform them? Then the human accountants can go inform the clients, continuing to build and foster that relationship. And that's what we think humans are for. It's not for doing the back of the office mundane accounting work, but rather building human relationships, understanding your pains and your needs and your desires, hopes and dreams, and then letting technology do that work behind the scenes. So those are the exciting things that we're working on. We were put on this path because of the accounting firm partners we work with early on. And this includes firms that work directly with family offices. And that's why we're in this category.
It's so exciting to think about not having to do all the generic reconciliation. Gareth, how about you? What is your roadmap looking like? What are you excited about as far as the industry and maybe potential AI use cases in the maturing in the near future?
Yeah, so thank you. We're trying to address a number of different issues in the industry, and one of them is, to your point, working with partners. Like, we do our implementations, we see it more as a center of excellence when we do it, because a lot of the time we're working with partners, and we want those partners, such as yourselves. We work with PwC, we've worked with like half a dozen industry specialists. We work with, our view is very much that, it's not going to be a technical thing on our side. Like, partners can do it, people will understand it. And that community helps feed back into our product about what everyone's seeing, what everyone wants to do. When we think of some of the legacy systems out there, over the last decade plus, there's been a whole host of requirements that people haven't really done in any of these systems because they don't have to, and there isn't really that choice around. We're working with some of the largest firms out there, building out our capabilities in open-ended, in credit, and private debt, in hybrid, in retail investors, in real estate, and more, across all these different strategies, to say that, when you use our system, we've actually built the kind of solutions that people need for those strategies and those operations to be automated in the system and to work the way that you would want them to. And so we're doing that not just through our partners, not just through the clients that we're working with. We also have a user group that Blackstone is heading, but that we're building up. We're doing it with some of our fund admins. We have a number of fund admins that are specialists, some small, some large, on our system. And so it's really about trying to take all these different viewpoints to kind of gather and build out the platform to have that capability. One of the biggest things we have right now is we're a cloud-based platform, but we don't host it. We essentially give people a template and they spin it up in their own AWS, Azure, or whatever account. So from a security standpoint, everything is theirs. What we are looking at hosting later for some of our smaller clients is the ability to say that we can host it and they can just log in, and we'll have our own data security around that. But that's, our roadmap is very much filled around industry-specific enhancements to build out, capabilities across a number of different strategies. Because ultimately, a lot of that drills down to why people are using Excel, why people are using 4 different systems, why they're doing all these different things, because nothing can kind of holistically work across what they need from an accounting perspective. And that's what we're dedicated to trying to change.
Exciting stuff for sure. Well, I think our time management worked out. We do have some questions, and before I just start asking them, I do want to thank Alex and Gareth for giving us their time. I know that you guys have busy schedules, I'm sure. And so with that, there's a couple questions, and I think the first one's from Robert Jones, and it's for Alex. And the question is, does your data need to be in SharePoint to benefit from your AI agents? As you know, many families store data on site in their offices, not on the cloud, due to confidentiality concerns.
At first, I was thinking, Paul, we were worried we wouldn't have enough content to fill the time, and here we
I
are.
know. I
Wow,
didn't even get to all the questions. Yeah.
that was a great discussion, though. Robert, thanks for your question. The short answer to your question is no. First of all, you're right. For AI to be able to do its job well, it needs to be able to access the data, and understanding that due to confidentiality concerns, you keep it stored on site. And so this is where you're going to need a on-prem solution, bringing the AI into your site rather than having it live on the cloud. With the way Truewind is currently set up, we do not have the resources to tackle these on-prem situations. We require things to be on the cloud, but I hope in a couple quarters that will change.
All right. Another question from Jonathan Cobrin is asking how many agents typically get deployed per implementation. And I assume that's a question for you again, Alex.
So, Jonathan, how many agents typically get deployed per implementation? It's in the several tens. The way to think about it is, if we're classifying bank transactions, that would be one type of agent. We train the agent to tackle just that. When it comes to doing a reconciliation, that's a different agent. Even when it comes to like reading a bank statement, so you download your PDF file from your bank, you upload it into Truewind, and we're able to grab all the transactions and build out the table from a PDF file. That's a separate agent. So given in any month-end close process, the things that we tackle, a bank, prepaid, fixed assets, and flux analysis, we're talking like a few dozen agents that tackle different parts of the workflow. Cool question.
Can you push downloaded bank statement PDFs into SharePoint? That's another Jonathan Cobrin. Yeah.
We push download bank statements into SharePoint. So that's, I think the answer there is no, because that would imply we are logging into your bank account and then downloading the bank statement, which I understand sometimes you allow your accounting firms to do so. It's a little trickier with AI agents, because then you are giving the agents 2FA authentication, which is probably not something that you would want to do. So my short answer there would be, could it technologically be done? Yes. Should we do that? Probably not. It'd be better off you to download it and drop it in SharePoint, and we can grab it from there. That'd probably be the safer thing to do. I imagine you're trying to get rid of this manual task, but at the end of the day, there's certain things we shouldn't let computers run around and do unsupervised.
All right. Well, there are no other questions. I do
actually, Paul,
go ahead.
There was one for above competitors. I think this one is for Gareth. It says, we've only heard about Excel. How does LemonEdge align with our...
Yeah.
Oh, you asked that earlier?
I was asking that one earlier, just about, if there's a deeply ingrained legacy system, and they wanted to use, for you, Alex, that was your systems on top of legacy systems, being an assistant to categorize journal entries and review Gareth's system. He gave a good answer about how that might integrate if they have an existing GL but need some of that algorithmic allocation tool. So
I bet I missed that.
Yeah. So, well, I think, I've got a couple. I've got to know you guys a little bit. Gareth, as we wrap up, what is your broad view of AI when you're looking at your product, or just in the market? I see things moving faster than they have. Products like yourself, what's your broad view, as a CEO of an emerging tech company?
Well, two parts. One specifically to what we do. We use AI internally, from development tools to Office, like Copilot, all those types of things. There's definitely AI tools we're looking at from a data migration standpoint and things like that. So there's use cases that help us. There's use cases where we're looking at it in the product. For instance, one of the big ones is, these are enterprise grade systems that have a ton of functionality behind them. So just being able to ask instead of reading tons of help files and all the rest, just being able to say, how do I do X, Y, Z, and chatbots kind of taking you through it all is one of the big things. The other part is we hold all the accounting data. There's lots of potential for us to do AI technology on that, but we tend to view that as looking at working with third parties to do that, such as like compliance tools, for instance, can sit on top of our platform. So there's lots of use cases specifically within what we are. I think when we look at it broadly, I have a couple of views about like AI broadly across the industry. I think, people always have that view. Is it going to be a problem in all of these different areas? And I take the view that I think it's similar to a lot of technologies in the past, and I don't really worry about, for instance, our space or office workers or programmers and all the rest. They're all going to be tools that end up helping people do their jobs and create a whole new host of other jobs. I think there are problems when you look at AI in less skilled sections. So if you look at, for instance, automating driving cars, then you do affect the economy. If overnight, if next year you can completely replace truck drivers with AI, I think that will have an enormous impact on the economy versus, office workers. I think, that they'll end up being able to use it for their jobs.
Yeah. I think, if we can get a big lift out of AI in the back office accounting world, we're all going to be very, very happy. So we'll stick with that and leave driving cars to somebody else. So with that, if there are no more questions, I think we can probably wrap up the session. I can see we've started to lose some people anyway. And I do want to thank Alex and Gareth for giving us their time today. And I hope that all of you know how to reach us if you're interested in anything that we do or want to talk further. Hi, Adriana.
Hi, Paul. Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know where Phil is. He normally joins to do the thanks, but he might have some technical problems. So I wanted to really thank you, Paul and Alex and Gareth. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Okay, so you want to take over, Phil?
Sure. So that was fantastic. Thank you so much, Paul, Alex, Gareth. I think that was really incredibly educational. You really showed what your systems do, and you should be very proud of where you are. In a very short time, you've accomplished an amazing amount, and I look forward to seeing you in many of my clients in the future. And Paul, we will stay in touch. Thank you so much. And Adriana,
Thanks, Phil.
I want to thank you so much for a great platform and for your collaboration. Couldn't do it without you.
Thank you very much. And we will be circulating the recording, by the way. And if anyone would like to connect with Alex or Paul or Gareth, do let me know. I think you will have my contact, or let Phil know, so we can connect you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you all.
Take care.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's been great.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.